We have 3D, we have music, we have film, we have studios. So the idea is that a company or an ad firm can come onto our platform and make a whole ad campaign, a whole commercial, whatever they want from soup to nuts, all with our content at Shutterstock. And we support creators like photographers, artists, musicians, like we support that. I've been recruiting pretty much my entire career. I love recruiting. I've never wanted to do anything else. Get the interviews done as quickly as possible. Don't do too many interviews. It's very important to make sure that they are onboarded correctly. Once they accept, it's not the end of the game. You have to make sure that you're staying in touch with them until they are here.
We are here with Valerie Vadala, Global Head of Talent Acquisition for Shutterstock. You all know Shutterstock, a leading global creative platform offering full-service solutions, high-quality content, and tools for brands, businesses, and media companies. Valerie is a talent acquisition and HR leader with incredibly extensive experience in building best-in-class recruitment experiences, and I'm so excited to have her on today. Valerie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So could you just start by telling us a little bit more about Shutterstock, your role there, and maybe some of the previous experiences that led you up there?
Sure. So as Lisa said, I'm the head of talent acquisition here at Shutterstock. I lead the talent acquisition function globally. I've been here about a year. And most people know Shutterstock for what we started out as about 20 years ago, which is a stock photo, an e-commerce site. Still, the bulk of our business does come from our e-commerce site. However, within the last couple of years, we moved into an enterprise model, which is more of a SaaS business platform, where we have like a content marketplace. So it's no longer just photos. Through both product development as well as acquisitions, we have 3D, we have music, we have film, we have studios. So the idea is that a company or an ad firm can come onto our platform and make a whole ad campaign, a whole commercial, whatever they want from soup to nuts, all with our content at Shutterstock. So we have been going through tremendous transformation the last couple of years as a result of that, and it's kept my team really busy. And you asked me, I'm sorry, you asked me about where I came from. So this is kind of my first foray into a more creative field and even technology focused, I would say. Before that, most of my career was spent. I've been recruiting pretty much my entire career. I love recruiting. I've never wanted to do anything else. And I've led many teams. I spent much of my time in financial services and learned a lot. Very much enjoyed my time there. But I've always been a creative person too, and felt a little handcuffed by being in such a heavily regulated industry. So it's kind of fun to be somewhere where you can be a little looser,
Yeah.
a little more open, and free to yourself.
Absolutely. I know. So, Valerie, you've been in talent acquisition and recruiting for years and years. So, I would love your perspective on the Great Resignation. And I'll preface it by saying a lot of people feel like the Great Resignation started with the pandemic, but a lot of the trends are showing that the movement really started to kind of take place throughout the last decade slowly. But I'd love your perspective on the Great Resignation. What are some of the things you kind of noticed throughout your career that might have alluded to the fact that it would escalate at some point? And what do you really think the heart of it is?
Right. Well, so, and it's interesting because I have heard this, that now they're looking at the patterns and they're seeing that, it didn't really all happen post-pandemic or through the pandemic. And we probably saw more of that for a lot of situational reasons. I have found it particularly fascinating, not just because as a recruiter, it makes our jobs quite painful at times. But also because I have been, the way I like to put it is I've been trying to crack the happiness code with work culture for quite some time. I've worked at a lot of great companies. Some of them had very enjoyable experiences. Some of them I had not very enjoyable experiences. And the company where I think I really learned how to love a place that I worked was Oppenheimer Funds, which was ultimately acquired. So when I was there, I was like, well, what is it about this place that's making me so happy? Because, it wasn't even like in the perks, free food or whatever, even the benefits, all of those things, my comp, all of those things were fine and good, but that wasn't what made it that it was never painful to go in. And what it really was for me, that first of all, they let me be a subject matter expert. People valued my input.
Mm-hmm.
I was adding value to the organization, and I really felt that. Also, I really liked most of my colleagues. Like we had a tendency to hire good people. We had a big jerk filter, and when we were bringing people in, and so most of the people I worked with, I really enjoyed being with. And I think it sounds like a simplistic thing, but I think it's incredibly important within a culture. And that is that you need to enjoy your colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
You spend so much time, you want to have a laugh with them now and then. You just, they're people you want to like spending time with, and people you're going to want to collaborate with and help each other, and so that was a really important thing. So anyway, that was kind of like my idea of happy, and then it got acquired, and sadly the culture went with the acquisition. And so from that, since then, I've been like kind of on this journey to say, what is it that makes people happy or not happy in a job? And I think that that's kind of the key to this great resignation, whereas it's kind of like the world is making a collective statement, right? Which is they're rejecting standard corporate culture. They want something else. They don't feel included. There's, not enough of the inclusion feeling. They're not feeling needed. They're not feeling wanted or seen or valued or understood. And I think that you could always like look at the hell I know versus the hell I don't know in terms of like, which way you want to go. Do I want to leave a job? Do I want to stay? And now people are weighing those and they're thinking, I'd rather go to the unknown and give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that substandard corporate culture needs to be totally overhauled. Um, leadership culture has to be more empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
People need to feel safe and feel like they're kind of understood and they're adding value in some way. So, I mean, the last thing I would say about it is, even though maybe there's been a pattern pre-COVID, I do think that lockdown is a lot of the reason that this happened was that most of us were working from home. And I think it wasn't just my experience, it was most people's experience, that it became like meeting, 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 meeting. Like, when I was at Wells Fargo, I used to, like, I'm in this little apartment in Brooklyn usually, and my kitchen is right next to where I would sit, but like to run to get lunch between meetings because it was so intense, like packed. And we used to be able to separate work from home. And once it wasn't separable anymore, it was, they just melded, and those boundaries went away. I think people were like, F this. You know what I mean? If you had like this kind of wonky corporate job before, at least you'd go
Uh-huh.
home and you'd do your thing. And you could kind of like build a wall between them and you could recharge. But once it was two things together and you couldn't separate it, I think people really were just like, I'm on my last nerve and I can't do this
Yeah.
anymore. So I do think that's why we saw so much more of it. This is the part I'm still struggling with, that there are so many people that want to be fully remote
Mm-hmm.
still. I love hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, yeah, I'm in the office today. I also like being in an office, and I'm surprised that so many people don't kind of get that feeling. Like, I get it, sweatpants are nice. Like, I'm like wearing a belt right now, and I'm like, oh. But I mean, the truth is, like, I feel like that delineation is kind of nice too, to separate them.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I appreciate you talking about is like this idea of being valued in the workplace, enjoying the people that you work with, knowing you're in a safe environment. And I think all of those points also touch on the fact that like people got to this place where they got opportunities where they didn't need to compromise on that anymore. And I think we have this normalcy of mindset, especially in corporate culture, where it can be more cutthroat, and we kind of learn to accept that as the norm. But there's a new
Right.
movement arising that allows people to escape from that mentality, which I think is great.
I totally agree with you, and I'm very excited to see it. And I love it's probably the first time in my career where you see, the corporate culture realizing it has to bend to the will of the labor pool versus the other way around,
Absolutely.
which is
Quite a power dynamic shift over there.
yes, nice to see.
So I loved listening to your sound bite on, I believe it was the Talk Talent to Me podcast, and you were
Mhm.
unpacking your thoughts a little bit there on employer branding. I would love for you to bring that perspective here. What does employer branding mean to you? Why does it matter? And what's even the importance of building a strong employer brand in 2022?
Right. So the thing that's interesting, and it's so funny because I was talking about that there because it's a project that I've been working on here at Shutterstock, and it's I've always loved advertising, and I have a creative mind myself, and so that kind of messaging, like messaging a buyer on anything,
Mhm.
like I'm an Uber consumer, and so like I love the idea of how are you selling to me, and so as you know, as recruiters, we're salespeople, right? So how are we selling? And I've seen employment branding become a thing. It almost makes me jealous because I'm like, why am I not doing that? Like all of a sudden, it's a job. When did that become a job, right? But but it's true. Like it really is so important because it used to be that companies just relied on the brand, whatever it was they were selling was what they used in terms of, like candidates would look at that and say, do I want to work for Kellogg's? Do I want to work for Ford? Whatever it is, Whereas now you're looking at it and saying, what does it mean in terms of my personal experience? What are they giving back to me? That's the employee value proposition. If I'm giving you my skills, my passion, my commitment, what are you giving me back? And some of it is like, the benefits, the comp, things like that. But it's also just this idea of what it's like to work at the organization. It's kind of like what I was talking about, that happiness code. I kind of think that the reason employment brand became a thing, I think you can look at Google, like, they had a very strong employment
Mhm.
brand, and a lot of it was the fringe benefits, the omelet chef and the, masseuse and all of those things, right? People love that whole thing. But it was also this, the growth potential, like, how people move within the organization.
Mhm.
It was a lot of that, what I'm talking about, that people seem to like each other. They seem to get along with each other. They seem to enjoy each other's company. There seem to be voluntarily spending time with each other outside of the workplace. And so I think people are looking at things like that and it's aspirational. And then everybody else is realizing, especially with this kind of labor shortage, okay, we need to show what we offer. Why would somebody want to come work with us? And so it's like this incredibly important piece. It's not enough to be like, hey, this is a great job, or hey, this is a great manager. It's like, why do I want to work for
Yeah.
you, company? Do I have pride in the fact that I'm working for you?
You're absolutely right. And I think that speaks to the fact that in the Great Resignation, there were so many people even leaving name brand companies. And while those companies are great to the public and the people as a brand and what they're known for externally, there was that difference created in great, what are you known for externally? But then internally, how does that really affect me? So I think that speaks to that wonderfully. Um, Talk to us about your opinion on recruitment and education pedigree. Where has there been kind of a mindset change for defining someone by their education in the hiring process?
So this could not be more timely because, first of all, I tend to overshare. So I'm going to overshare right now. This is not normal at Shutterstock, but I do have a senior leader who has a senior role that they're filling right now and feels very strongly about that education pedigree. I mean, for a role where somebody's been working for like 15 years
Mhm.
already, like honestly, really, who cares, right? And so I actually was just today thinking I have to go and talk to this person and tell them that they're discounting good people as a result of
Mhm.
this. It is not. I have not. It's the first time I've seen it here. It is a very old school way of thinking, right? And I used to see it a lot when I was in investment banking. When I was like at Lehman Brothers and Credit Suisse, they were very rigid about that. I don't know if that has changed. I suspect it has changed to a certain degree. Part of the reason it's changed probably is if you want a more diverse workforce, you do have to kind of open it up. Like Harvard's full of a bunch of legacy. The same people are coming through places like that. I mean, it's changing, it's evolving, but I think that part of the reason that they expanded is because they wanted a more diverse workforce, and I think that also what they're finding is, wow, people went to SUNY Binghamton are just as good as a person at Harvard. What were we doing? That that's part of what it is that you're realizing really what those I mean, it's impressive. I don't mean
Mhm.
to take away from anybody who worked really hard to get to those schools, and I'm sure it's very challenging, but really what they offer the most is alumni
Mhm.
networks. Like, when you're talking about what you've learned in them, intelligence, levels of intellectual ability and picking things up, how quick of a study you are, it's not gonna vary from school to school, so it shouldn't matter. And I don't think it does as much for most places. I think most people now know how to assess people based on other things, based on, grades matter to an extent. for some roles. But even that, I kind of don't pay as much attention to because there's a lot more grade inflation now. So like it seems like everybody has like a 3.6 or above. So I don't even pay too much attention to that. It's about how well rounded they are, how well spoken they are, how focused they are, excited they are about opportunities. And then once they have experience, it's about the experience. How did you do in your jobs? What's your career progression been? Is that more relevant? And again, personality. Is this person going to fit and flourish within the
Mhm.
organization? So that matters a lot more. I am happy to see that go away. And I think it is a dying breed that cares
Yeah,
about
for
that.
sure. And I think that also speaks to the fact that I feel like a lot of employers now are bringing some of those questions that might have been like just a little more considered an aside to the forefront of the conversations in the initial interviews. One of the things that at Solvable that we do is we vet for passion. So maybe it's someone that didn't go to the most recognized school, but what communities are you involved with? What are your passion projects? Where are you driving outside of maybe your direct work that might speak to how you function within your work. So,
Right. Right. No, I totally agree that those things matter more. And when I talked about the jerk filter that we had Oppenheimer funds, it was a lot like those pieces, like, is somebody a name dropper? Does somebody seem like they have sharp
mhm.
elbows? Is somebody like that stuff was more the reason I'm going to filter somebody out than the fact that they went to University of Delaware, which is my alma mater. Go Blue Hens. Yeah.
So, one thing I loved about going through your LinkedIn was just seeing your posts about Shutterstock and just the human centric nature of so many of the things you were posting. I just love to know what culture does Shutterstock foster that is attractive to prospective candidates?
Right. So I'm glad you saw that and that you're commenting on it. So part of the reason that we did this whole employer brand thing is that when I got here, I didn't know what the message was. And I think that we are kind of lacking a message and that I'm actually trying to be a voice to the message. But I'm just one person and I need not just my voice, but also a collective voice about what people see what it's like, what people think it is like to work at Shutterstock. And I think that the things that it really kind of offers is, first of all, like what we do to me is super cool. I would never say that we were mission driven or anything like that. A lot of companies say they're mission driven now and they're so not, right? So I'm not saying that, but we help creators create, and that is so
Mhm.
freaking cool, right? Like I love what we do. We help creators create and we support creators like photographers, artists, musicians, like we support that. So I love that
Yeah.
piece, right? I also think that we are incredibly collaborative. I've been working with an agency, a Canadian agency called Blue Ivy. Actually, they're great. If anybody needs an employer branding, some help with that. But and they were telling us that while they were doing focus groups within our organization, more than any other company they ever worked with, like people had each other's backs, like which is just an important theme in this happiness code. So I think that especially among the just like the workers, within Shutterstock, we all kind of we work together, we look out for each other, we care about each other, and we want the best for each other. Overall. There are a few that maybe not, but overall, that's a theme here. So I think that collaborative nature is super important too. And then the last thing I'd say is that growth is very important here. We were the stock photo company for a long time. We're shifting and transitioning and transforming into something else. And with that, we expect a lot of growth of our market cap, of our revenue, of our client base, all of those things. And so we need people who are excited about that and want to contribute to that. And it's two-sided. Something that I think we have been in the past a little weak on, but we've gotten much better on, is growing your career path. And we have a head of talent management that started about a year ago. She's amazing. And so she's built out a team. I've actually helped her with that recruiting, and they are amazing people. And so we're offering a lot more in terms of developing everybody and having career paths, and also high potential people, and helping managers learn to manage better, and things along those lines. So I think that the growth piece of it is also a really important feature that we offer here at
I
Shutterstock.
think that's wonderful, and I think there's a value in adding that and contributes to why you get up in the morning for work. One more
Exactly.
question. Actually, I think I have a couple more questions for you, Valerie. But
Bring it
one
on.
thing
I'm
I would
ready.
love to hear is just based on your experiences over years of recruiting, what does a great hiring process in 2022 look like? And how does the hiring process influence a candidate's desire to be part of the company?
Well, so I've always been a huge champion of candidate experience. And when I say that, I always kind of like quasi wince because I think all of us with volume and over time, like there have been a few times where I've fallen through, had things fall through the cracks. And so if anybody's listening to this and they're like, well, you didn't do that for me, sister. I know sometimes I screw up. Okay. But generally speaking, I think that first of all, recruiters ideally will talk to candidates, like have 15-30 minute conversation with the candidates. I think that if you're real with them, if you're very genuine, and if you're not corporate wonky, it really helps to make them more interested in an opportunity, and I always try to do that. And I try to be as energetic and enthusiastic about the company and the opportunity. So, and then you have to move very quickly through the process, right? And so that's the 2022 part, is that you do not have time to dawdle. If it's a good candidate, just assume that they're looking at other things, and that and those people are moving faster than you are. So you have to move very quickly through the process. Get the interviews done as quickly as possible. Don't do too many interviews. It's hard to say. I can't give you like a hard and fast number because it depends on the role and the seniority, but I'd say no more than three generally, because then you also get like analysis paralysis in terms of like two people really liked him and two people didn't, or whatever. Like it's better to keep it tighter in terms of the decision making. And you have to move quickly. You have to continue to communicate with them throughout the process. And then, at the end of the day, it's very important to make sure that they are onboarded correctly. Once they accept, it's not the end of the game. You have to make sure that you're staying in touch with them until they are here, and then it becomes more of talent development and talent management to kind of make sure that everything goes from there. But because I don't know about you, but we've lost people that we thought were starting like on a Friday and they
Uh-huh.
didn't come on a Monday now, which is a new thing. So you have to kind of stay close to them nowadays through the entire
I think that's
process.
a great piece of advice, and I just want to like take a second to really highlight that staying close to them, because you're right. There is a problem where sometimes people are just not showing up, and other times you think you have them, they're hired, they're in, and they're still really thinking of believing in 6 months. So staying close.
Yeah, I have I have a story that, I mean, this was unbelievable to me. But so my husband has a friend who's been an FP&A his whole career at the same bank, right, forever, probably underpaid, everything else. And then he finally got an offer, and he went to this place and he got like an increase, and the boss was a jerk. And because he had been looking, another company offered him a job, and he's like, I'm just going to leave because this guy's a jerk. Like within a month, he left for this other company. And then another company offered him, and he's like, well, he's okay. I'm not even kidding. And now he got another offer for 10,000 more. And I'm like, you cannot leave. I said, you cannot. That's just terrible karma. But that's how people work now. He's like, it's 10,000 more. Why wouldn't I leave?
It's like,
It's
what happened to
crazy.
that like metric of staying for at least a year and 6 months?
No, crazy. Yeah, I mean, so that was an extreme case, but I mean, he'd been at the same bank for like 20 years. I swear, like forever. And then all of a sudden he had like five jobs. Bananas.
Last question for you, Valerie. So at Solvable, we're all about what drives purpose and meaning for people at work. So I would love to know what drives purpose and meaning for you at Shutterstock.
So I think that what we do for a living is like the most important thing, at least that HR does, right? Like I love contributing to building a company and a culture, right? And we do that, right? So I love that, and I love like Indeed gave me this T-shirt once. It says, "I help people get jobs," and I love that we do that, right? We help people get jobs. We can change lives, right? And so I think that gives me joy. So that's like, I don't necessarily think that a company is mission driven, but I feel like my job is a little mission driven because I can do these great things. Like I can help people take the next step in their career and hopefully flourish, right? So finding purpose in what you do. I don't think that as recruiters we're the only people that get that. Finding purpose in what it is you do matters. And then I also think that just like I said, like not just enjoying the company that you're with, like the people you're with, but like I do find that like helping people out, like being the person to say, not say it's not my job, be like, you know what, I think I can help you with that, or I think like just I feel like when I contribute to making a place a better place to work for other people, that's a lot of value that I get. So it's something that I'm cracking the happiness code, one nice thing I do at a
Yes.
time, you
Oh,
know?
man, I love that you touched on that. We actually just had a conversation internally the other day about how sometimes there can be kind of a misconception on mission. And I think sometimes, or mission and purpose. And I think sometimes we can think super high level about it. Like, is the company saving the world or something? But I think when you bring it down to a
Right.
micro level, like, what do you value as a person and how can you bring that anywhere you go? So I love your perspective on that. Valerie, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being with us today. And thank you all for listening to Architects of Contemporary Hiring.
That was awesome. Thank you for having me, Lisa. It was a pleasure.